Chapter 20.
Safe space. Listening to an engine in much need of a tune-up, Azita headed out of town, though she had no idea what direction Tyler's secret system was located. Something about driving an old farm truck gave her the same feeling as wrapping up with a favorite tattered blanket on a cold winter day. With a clonk here and a squeak there, she allowed the events of the day to drift to the rear of her thoughts. "We need to get off here. Take the 155 to the 79 and head south to San Marcos," Tyler stated, ending Azita's serenity. Following his directions, she exited from their current highway and merged onto Y-155 South. "That will work out great. I can drive over to Austin in the morning, cover the governor scandal, and be back by mid-afternoon," she informed Tyler. "You're continuing with a story? How can you after what happened today?" Tyler snapped. "If something is after us, the best way to travel around is with a cover. The paper provides that, and at this point, we need every advantage we can get." Understanding that the next few days were going to be very difficult for him after losing his wife, Azita did her best to help in the process by keeping his mind on other things. "We need to find out who those men were at my door. They did something to Sarah to make her—" Tyler stopped speaking as the image of Sarah with the sword in her skull reappeared. "Well, I'm not doing a very good job now, am I?" Azita thought. "I don't believe they followed me to you since they were already at the first place that I looked for you. So, why now? Could it have been something you were working on?" she asked, hoping to get his mind focused elsewhere. An answer didn't come quickly, and for quite some time he sat staring out into the darkness of night with Azita trying not to push him. She thought back to her first days with her new family, the Cartwrights, and how scared she had been. "My name is Ruthie." Azita recalled how tired and weak she had felt while her new mom did her best to communicate and comfort her. Azita had no idea how long she had been unconscious, didn't understand what the woman was saying, and didn't know how bad she looked from exposure from her time adrift. Ruthie had understood her condition and constantly pushed her to eat and drink, all the while saying, "My name is Ruthie." "Ruthie!" Azita smiled, remembering how happy her mother had been when she spoke her name for the first time. It was at that point that she met her new father. "Bosco, get in here! She said my name!" Ruthie called out full of joy while once again trying to get her to drink more water. "What are you bellowing about in here?" Bosco said, appearing to swing through the door by one hand. She remembered how he seemed like a giant to her as he looked down smiling with pearl-white teeth. It was at that point she grabbed Ruthie around the waist and held on tight for protection as the giant laughed. "You're scaring the little darling, Bosco," Ruthie said, enjoying the attention as her motherly instincts took over. Due to contracting a case of the measles, Bosco couldn't have children, and that was the one thing she had always wanted. "Don't get too attached. We're almost to Kuwait City, and they can help find her parents." Bosco felt as though he had to remind his wife of what was to come. "They can't do anything to help her, not to mention we found her near the Strait of Hormuz. Look at her, Bosco. You know what country she came from." Ruthie had known ever since his shipping company had taken a large loss from the Iranian Revolution that he wanted nothing to do with its archaic government. Azita had watched as Bosco stepped over to Ruthie, placing his hand on her shoulder lovingly, remaining silent. "You know how these countries treat girls. Look at her, Bosco. She survived something horrible. Do you really want to send her back into that world?" Ruthie pleaded on not only Azita's behalf, but also her own. "I have a connection that can get the necessary paperwork. But we look for her parents, deal?" he said, folding to his wife's will. Yes. You hear that, little one? Everything is going to be okay," Ruthie said, looking down and squeezing the little girl tight. "We are going to need a name. Bosco," he said his name, pointing at his chest and smiling at Azita, who let out a little laugh at the sound of his name. "She thinks your name is funny. Charlotte," she said, pointing at her chest and then to the little girl wrapped around her waist. "Azita." "Azita? Our turn is coming up soon. You need to get over." Slightly startled by Tyler finally speaking, Azita did what he suggested, only to be surprised by where they were upon spotting a sign that read, San Marcos, 5 miles. It wasn't the first time she had become lost in her memories, but it was the longest. At times, it felt like her mind's way of helping her through the difficult times. Up here, you are going to make 2 lefts, and then a right onto a gravel road. Take it for another 5 miles. Tyler was still not talking about what could have been the cause for the 2 men hunting him down, but as long as he remained calm, Azita was okay not pressing the issue for now. Turning onto the gravel road he had spoken of, she looked down to the odometer to track when she had gone 5 miles down the road. That's when she noticed the first numbers of the odometer never changed. Tell me when we get close. The counter doesn't work. She wasn't sure if he had heard her, but thought there was a slight nod of his head in the darkness. Stop by that clump of cedar trees, Tyler informed her, just as the headlights of the truck brought them into view. The second after hearing the word cedar, Azita's hand reached for the pills in her bag as her body trembled at the thought. This was the negative effects of having such a full recall of memories. Listening to the brakes of the old farm truck squeal as they slowed, she hoped Tyler's plans didn't rest on silence. Before the truck had come to a complete stop, Tyler opened his door and exited, running around the front of the truck and moving over to the tree's center. Just then, Azita had to rub her eyes to be sure what she was seeing was really happening and not just an illusion from a long day. Satisfied it was happening, she watched as Tyler parted the trees like a cedar tree gate, waving her through once opened wide enough for the truck. "What kind of place do you have out here, and how did you afford it?" Azita asked as Tyler climbed back into the truck. Instead of answering her questions, he pointed her path out through the tall, brush-like trees where an old road once ran. 10 minutes passed as they drove through the barely recognizable path. "We almost there?" Azita asked, looking forward to hearing a positive response. "Just up here. You can park under the trees." She wondered what was going through his mind. He seemed normal, but had said little to nothing on the drive here. The night was getting late, and Azita looked forward to getting the 4 hours of rest she normally was enjoying by this time of night. Seeing an opening between 2 larger trees, Azita pulled between them and placed the truck in park. Tyler again swung the door open and exited into the dark of night. "Okay, I'll just follow you then," Azita said quietly, reaching into her bag and pulling out a small flashlight before stepping out of the truck. Raising her bag up and dropping the strap over her shoulder so it draped across her body, Azita headed toward the front of the truck. "Where you at, Tyler?" she called out into the darkness, just quiet enough to keep her voice from traveling any great distance. "Back here." Hearing his voice come from the rear of the truck, Azita made her way through the brush and found him standing on the path they drove in on. Puzzled, she asked, "Where do we go now?" "Back," Tyler said without any hint to his system's location. "Back? We are walking back down the path we just drove on to get here?" she asked, frustrated with the short answers and lack of communication. "I'm sorry, it won't be long. Trust me," Tyler requested, hearing the growing frustration in her voice. They walked for a quarter of a mile back down the path. The entire time, Azita played the trip back in her mind, attempting to recall anything that seemed like a building, but there was nothing. Azita kept her tired eyes on Tyler as he turned off the path, heading for another clump of cedar trees. Great, Azita thought, as the light from her flashlight shined upon them and Tyler walked between 2 out front. Beep, 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 beep. The sounds of electronics perked her ears up just before she stepped through the trees to see Tyler holding up a large rock. Then she heard 2 more beeps. With those beeps, a light shined up from underneath the rock, illuminating trees all around. "You first, please. I need to lock up." Azita felt she had really underestimated Tyler's need for security. This went way beyond changing emails and passwords once a week. Even as the thoughts crossed her mind about how crazy all of it seemed, she had to ask herself if it really was, after all she had witnessed that day. Before she knew it, she was at the bottom of the 20-foot ladder as excitement began to take hold of her. "Hope you are not claustrophobic," Tyler remarked on his way down the ladder. The area filled her with joy, just as she had felt when searching the caves near her home in Iran as a child. With a smile on her face, Azita replied, "Not at all." Looking around, she immediately recognized the bunker as a 40-foot cargo container hulled on her family's ships. At one end were monitors and other electronic devices. At the other were beds and showers, the bed and shower being the area that called to her the most. "I apologize for not telling you sooner, but I did not want to speak of this till I knew 100% nobody could be listening. I know you pulled the battery and SIM card from your phone, but you just never know." Tyler took a deep breath before continuing. "Okay, to answer your earlier question, this is mine, but under a fake name and corporation. It was a joint venture between me and Larry, my very rich friend who died a little over a year ago. He wanted the ultimate bunker with communications, so here we are." Satisfied with his answer, Azita only had one other question for Tyler. "Which of these beds is mine?"